basically it's the same as the first poll. It's just that you can actually see what's going on. First pole's a little rough because, as I said, you don't have any room to really maneuver. You can use the outside here and a little bit of the entrance area. It's nice if it does start to go sideways. You can zone out and a bunch of people can save, except unless there's horde waiting for you out there, of course. Um, but let me see if I can move forward just a little bit here. Some feedback from someone. I think it is maybe Roar. Thank you. So these initial polls here, there's a couple there's three static groups and there's a patrol. So the static group has a couple of different mobs. We'll see them when he actually turns his camera eventually. There are the most dangerous mobs in here, which they have marked Skull and X. These are Star Scryers. These mobs can be CC'd, so they can be sheeped. Generally, if you don't sheep them, you should kill them first. They have AoE that they do, which makes them annoying. They do a considerable amount of raid damage, and they can also mind control, which is really annoying. Killing them first is fine. The reason that you might not want to CC them is that there's the other mobs over here. There are the Vindicators. These guys heal and like they do Hammer of Justice, like a paladin, and they also dispel magic. So if you sheep them, they could just be dispelled, and now you have them running around in the raid. So that's probably why these guys have opted to do this strategy. So another way you could do it is you basically pull them with sheep, pull these guys back, LOS out of range. I think it's just fine to kill them because the rest of the mobs aren't a huge threat themselves. They can just be off tanked away. The last one in the group is the Legionnaires. These guys cleave Whirlwind. They can also be CC'd, but for the same reason, we probably just end up tanking them because of the dispels. So generally, I don't like when things can be, if you poly things and they get dispelled or removed, and they're not being tanked, then just run around in the raid. Same reason I had for the Spore Bats in SSC. So um, likely the way that they're doing this is the way that we're probably going to end up doing it, is just pulling these away, because the Legionnaires cleave. Those can also just be separated, and you can stack the Vindicators too, which is probably fine. I would probably do that instead of taking all these guys separately. Probably just take, the two ones that Whirlwind away from everything else, and then have everything else together at the beginning, just cleave down. Once you get rid of the first two, there's almost no raid damage going out. The only thing that's going to be really going out is the whirlwinds and the cleaves from the Legionnaires. So melee just have to be careful, which is a continuing theme basically through all of TBC. While they are killing this pack, I believe they get a patrol that comes in here, which is fine. This pack is actually almost dead. This pack that comes in has the two ones that are bookending. These are squires. They're basically the same as the paladins in here, except I think these guys don't cleanse. They still heal, they still do hammer justice, but I think the difference is that they don't cleanse magic. I could be mistaken about that. However, this guy in the middle, the Marshal does big damage whirlwind. Melee never want to go in on this guy, and that's spooky that it's even spinning there. So if you're melee and there's the patrol with just the 3 units, just let the range kill this. Don't even go in. I mean, if you want to try and go in to get some damage and then get out as soon as he starts whirlwind, that's fine. But just realize that you might just die. So I think it can pretty much one shot you if you're not careful. Yeah, before the patrol, that group there, it's the same group at the beginning, and there's one more group here at the end. It's the same thing. It's two of each of the mobs. So two of the Vindicators, two of the Scryers, and then two of the Legionnaires in each one of those pulls. This patrol is also very long. They go all the way up and down the hallway, and they RP a little bit with each group. So um, we may or may not do a pull depending on where the patrol is at. If it's close, we'll probably just wait. If it's far away, we'll probably just go and deal with it if it shows up. I think it can be distracted, so if we want to do that when they're starting to get close, that may help. Okay, yep, so same thing here. You split everything up. Smart kill the two casters, the scryers. Those are the ones that do the most damage. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like they've got their marks mixed up. I think because they've got one of the casters in the group here. But that's the last you see of these guys here. It's just this first hallway. The next room has a bunch of different types of hawks and a like bird trainer. Like they let me find out what they're called. Tempest falconers. Okay. Um. So these poles are not dangerous. They're just annoying. The poles are going to be larger poles. As you can expect, there's going to be a bunch of hatchlings that come in, and Chetty's going to be picking up all of those. There'll also be the two falconers; those are going to be me and Gorg are picking up. Um, the falconers actually do have a fire shield that does extra damage to anyone that hits them. I think it's a good amount of damage, so you probably don't want to lay into them too much. And then the phoenix hatchlings, um, they have an immolation or two. The damage total though that they put out is not very big. It's if you're standing next to them as melee, it's not a big deal. They also knock back all the melee constantly and do an AoE silence, which is great. So if they get loose into the raid, it's a big deal. So what you do not want to do is as soon as you see them, just start going crazy with AoE, because if you do that, they're going to get into the raid, and then everyone's going to be knocked back all over the place, and that's how you wipe. So what you need to do is let the threat get established, and then you can start DPSing. Honestly, if you want to start on the Falconers, the two regular Blood Elf guys, that's fine. Those ones you can DPS right away, but don't let this happen where these hatchlings are all over the place, because it's going to get messy. They're each going to start knocking back or all around them. Everyone's going to be knocking all over the place. You just want them pulled nicely into a corner. So you want to wait till all of them are in the corner, uh, and not have this happen. This is bad. So, but even you can see even with this, it's the raid's not really in danger of wiping here. It's as messy as this is. So what we're gonna do, likely, is we're gonna pull, as they're doing, is pulling um, the big group into one corner, and that'll be the casters who are going to be AoEing those. I think they pulled a second group here in accident, but and then the other corner will be the two falconers, and the melee will be killing those, so they don't get knocked all over the place constantly. You also have to make sure that you're not killing yourself with the fire shield. Yeah, I don't think they meant to pull a second group here. This gets sideways very quickly. I think they might wipe here, actually. Let me take a look. Maybe not. But yeah, there's two of these packs. They are both on the outside. So how you can have that happen is if someone gets knocked into the room. So when you're positioning yourself, make sure that you are not in a position where you're going to knock back. So when they have them in the two opposite corners, as much as it sucks for melee, please just be in the corner or somewhere where you're going to get knocked into the room. So like if the two falconers are in the corner where all those birds are right now, you don't stand here just to get behind them in the doorway. You stand like opposite side where if you get hit, you're gonna get thrown further into the room. That's ideal. I mean, if you can, just attack from the front. That way, if you get hit at all, you just go into the corner. You don't have to worry about it. You should never wipe to these packs. If you wipe to these packs, it's because you you probably AoE'd too early.
Yeah, the Dragonhawks do a melee range silent, so it's really bad if you aggro early, so don't be greedy.
I think no is that silence will also silence Chetty, so it's going to be hard for him to keep doing threat, but it can be dispelled. So if he gets that on him, please dispel that so that he can keep putting threat up so we can AoE. There's only those two packs, and they're the only ones in the whole instance. So, um, the next thing they pull, this is going into a large room. So this is already the first boss here. The boss is going to patrol all the way around the top. The boss will not engage until you attack Alar. So make sure that you're not accidentally, looking at Alar and, hitting it with a auto shot or something on accident, because that will wipe the raid. So what we are going to pull are these Phoenix Hawks. There's uh, like 4 or 5 of them that are patrol up top. We pull them down to the bottom. The way these Phoenix Hawks work is they have a charge that hits really hard, and the charge is, as you can see, is like a surger charge. So you want everyone to stack up. Just be like a surger. Just get really close. There's no reason to be far away. Hunters can even attack very close within the surger range. But if someone's outside of that, it will charge, and as you see, everyone gets knocked back, takes a bunch of damage. Probably won't kill anybody from that, but yeah, as you can see, that's really annoying, and it's easily preventable. They also do an AoE mana burn, which is annoying. So you'll just lose a bunch of mana over time, and while that won't wipe us at all, it'll make us have to drink. So we'll make sure that we're not like constantly pulling them. As you see, a bunch of people in the raid are well, you might not be able to see it with your resolution, but most of the raid is below half, and some people are in fumes from just one of those. But it's not hard at all as long as people are stacked up. Even if you're on fumes, like you'll be able to just heal, which is rank 1 heals basically, and keep the tank up. All right, and what we're gonna do is actually for Alar, we're gonna switch to a different view here. Because he stares at the ground like the whole phase 1. And actually, I think this might be nice for the tanks and people who are not tanks to see the tank point of view on this. So we're going to switch over to, if I can find it. All right, can you see the new window here?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be from a Drew point of view. So Alar is probably the hardest non end boss to kill. So outside of Kale and Vosh, probably yeah, definitely TK, but possibly in all of T5 outside of Vosh, Kale is the hardest one. So we have a decent view of the room here. So as you see, a large flies around in a circle up top until you actually engage. This room this boss is a 2-phase fight. So the first phase will happen when you engage. You'll be pulled up to the top of the ramp here, and the boss is essentially frozen in place. It's like Ragnaros or any other fight where the boss doesn't move, Lurker, etc. When they're at a spot, he just stays there. Ranged cannot pull aggro, so you can just as soon as you can attack, you can just go, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, if you are melee, you can still pull aggro, so you need to be mindful of that. This fight will also have the boss moving during phase 1, so I don't mean like walking, but the boss will transition from platform to platform. So there are 6 places where the boss can move to. Well, 6 places that it'll move to on this level. So it'll be the top of the 2 platforms where you can see the other marker is at. You might not be able to see that, but right here. There's 2 platforms that stick out very obviously. Those are also 2 platforms. And then there's 2 more that you'll see later that are not really intuitive. Yeah, it's like right here. So here and one right underneath where this map is at are the other 2 spots. There's no like visual indicator that that would be a platform of any sort, but there's 6 spots. So the tanks are divided into zones. So what the way that we number these are starting with the one to the left of the door as you're coming in. This would be 1. Top of the ramp would be 2. The opposite, sorry, the ones that are in the middle of the room to the left where his vision can't see, those are 3 and 4. This spot at the top of this ramp is 5, and then this spot over here to the right of the door is 6. So it just goes around clockwise, starting with the door. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the tanks will be in zones. So one tank, will be myself, will be at positions 1 and 2. One tank will be 3 and 4, and another tank will be 5 and 6. So it's going to be myself here. It'll be Gorg or Cash Root here at the other side. Reason being is that we have better mobility than Chetty does. And Chetty has experience also doing the far platforms as well. Also, it's a little harder to jump down for Quill Spray sometimes from the middle. So him having Bubble makes it a little bit easier for him if he is late on that. So if there is no one in position at the platform when he moves, the boss will begin to do a flame buffet, and that will cause the whole raid to take damage, and it'll stack. You'll take more and more damage. So there has to be a tank there, but if it's not there immediately, it's fine. Something to be mindful of if you are tanking, be close to the edge of the platform. You can't tank it over on the side here because everyone is on the ground, will not be able to see him, won't be able to heal him in LOS. So you have to make sure that you are near the edge. You don't have to literally be on the edge where you might accidentally fall off, but you have to be close enough where you're going to get healed. As I said, melee, the most dangerous part for you is probably this first part. Don't go crazy, right? Just there's no reason to like dig in. After one transition, usually you're fine to go. Tanks will have to make sure that if it's transitioning to your side, that you taunt. The boss is tauntable, but if it's at like position 1 behind him, and then it goes to position 6, and the melee run over there, and Cash hasn't taunted, then they might just run up and actually take a bunch of damage and die because the boss just turns towards them. So you can see here, boss is casting Wing Buffet. The raid starts to take damage. It's not a ton of damage. I would say like after like 3 or 4, it gets really dangerous. So if he had started to run over and then he fell down, and now he's got to go back up and try to get back over there's probably people dying. You know, you're gonna have to use health stones. You're gonna have to make sure you're using your circle of healing, chain healing to make sure the raid stays alive. Melee are probably jumping down to like make sure they get heals. So just make sure that you're not falling off when that's happening. The boss will spawn ads and I've tried to find a source on this, but it appears to be he only spawns ads in 2 situations. One, when he goes, sometimes instead of going to a platform, what he will do instead is he flies up to the middle of the room and does a Quill Spray. In that circumstance, he will spawn an ad. Also, if he cuts across the room, I've heard that he spawns an ad as well. I couldn't really find a good video or any indication that was for sure. So you can see here the boss, you saw the trajectory is starting to fly up to the middle of the room. That's the key here for him to jump down. The dangerous part, and you gotta watch out melee here too, any part outside of not this graphic, but the darker one where the ramp is at, if you are there, you will die. So if you see him go up to the middle of the room, you need to get out because you can't really see it very easily. But there's like puffs here. If you were looking at the boss, you could see it a little bit easier. But basically, there you go. Yeah, you can see him throwing out all this AOE. If you were on this, you're probably gonna die. And as you can see here, you take one wing buffet, he's able to charge back up and get to the boss. So, casters in the bottom, easy job. You just follow around and kill the boss. Healers, you just stay with the DPS and you just heal the tank or top people up after the wing buffet. For your job's super easy. This first phase is almost entirely on the tanks, just making sure that they're getting to their positions in time. So good to have swiftness pots. If you have to get from one point to the next, make sure if you're getting to a bad spot, you have other means of mobility if possible. What we will have is if an ad spawns, um, I don't know that we actually need to have another tank to pick it up. We might just have the tanks that if it pops on your platform that you just get it, and we'll see how that works. If not, we'll have Flex just pick up the ads until this phase. So this phase, if you were to be one picking up ads, essentially what's going to happen is the healers are going to be healing, and that ad's just going to come down. You just need to pick up probably 2 ads during the fight, and then going into phase 2, Chetty would just taunt them off of you. So you wouldn't even need tanking gear. You would just throw a shield on. And that way you're not chasing the boss around. When the boss dies, and this is important for melee too, when the boss dies in phase 1, the phase that they just went through, he does a big explosion. Okay, anyone around him is going to take a ton of damage. So when the boss has only a few percent left, just get off the platform, just jump down to the bottom. Same thing with tanks. When the boss is at if it just hits 1%, just jump. What's going to happen is the boss maybe does a wing buffet, which is fine. But the alternative is you stay up too long and he explodes and you die. So I think he resisted it, so he got lucky, but it does a lot of damage and it throws you. So just get off the top. Going into phase 2, the boss's health resets and it's a different fight. So make sure that we are clear of the middle here, in the middle of the glass, I guess you call it, because you can see through down to the bottom here. The boss will spawn, and when the boss spawns, it comes up and does a spin, and anyone that is there will get hit and thrown back. Probably won't kill you, but just avoid it regardless. This phase is definitely a 3 tank phase. So the boss will just attack their one target. Every once in a while, they will do an ability I think it's called Melt Armor. That will reduce the target. It always gets on the main target, and that will reduce their armor by 80%. It's imperative that if you are tanking and it's not your target, that you are taunting immediately. And if your taunt resists, you have to use another taunt to so for cash. If your taunt resists, you need to immediately shout just to get the challenging roar or whatever, just to get it on you, and then taunt again afterwards. Otherwise, I'm probably dead. I'll do the same thing, except that I have an extra tool. I have Mocking Blow as well as shout. So that's the biggest thing for the tanks. The boss will also be spawning. It's hard to see. You'll see them more throughout the fight. Patches of fire. These do a lot of damage. They'll just spawn on someone randomly. So you want to spread out loosely. We're not going to have assigned places because the room's going to be eaten up and we can't just have people assigned to places. So just try to spread smartly around the boss. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just try not to, don't try to be in a big clump with everybody else. Exception is melee. Melee are just, it is what it is. You're melee. But if it spawns under you, don't jump out of it. Here, it's easier to see. We talked about this before. The game registers wherever you're at by where your feet are. So if you're in it and you jump out, until you land, you're not actually out of it despite wherever your model is. So just run out of it as fast as possible. And running out does not mean hitting your S key and walking backwards really slow. It means moving, turning your camera towards the closest way out and getting out, or strafing out quickly. It will kill you quickly if you stay in there. That's probably the number one danger, is these patches. The boss also appears to have a charge that he will do. The best I can tell, it appears to hit someone that is within charge range that is closest. I can't really tell exactly how it works, but I've seen people randomly die by a large charging. It does not appear to be threat based. So the next mechanic that happens here is the boss will regularly go up in the air to where it would do the quill spray, but instead of quill spray, he will do dive bomb. So if you were to look up, he forms a giant meteor. The raid has to stack here. The damage is split just like other meteor mechanics. It's split among the raid. So if you don't stack, whatever one or two people or whatever get hit by that are going to die because they're going to take all of that damage themselves and they're just dead. On the private server, we would spread because what would happen is um, the meteor was faster, so it was harder to stack. But the part that was actually harder beyond that is once he dives bombs, he would come back up just like he did at the start of the phase and spin and hit everybody. Here, that happens much slower. So you can see the dive bomb happens. There's plenty of time to get away for everyone to clear out, and then the boss comes back. The threat on the boss, he has his threat like way down here, but it is preserved. So it's going to go back on whoever had threat last. So you don't have to worry about it resetting just because of that. But be mindful that whoever was getting hit before is going to continue to get hit. And there's the melt armor mechanic where you have to taunt off. Now, every time that happens where the boss falls down and does the dive bomb, it's going to spawn 2 of those ads that you may have gotten in the first phase. You don't really want to kill these. Chetty's going to pick them up. He should be able to tank a lot of these. Even if we have some of these going into phase 2, we don't even really need to kill these. He can tank probably like a dozen of these at least. And the secondary benefit of having these and not killing them is that hunters can actually put down snake traps, use these to activate them, and the meteor damage is actually split among everyone, including the snakes. So you can see here on this dive bomb, everyone took significantly less damage because there were a bunch of snakes up. And lucky for us, we have 3 to 4 hunters in the raid, so they should be doing that. Every time that he goes up, should have a snake trap. Isn't enrage here. I think most every boss in T5, you see there's just a random charge that just kills people. I'm trying to find out exactly how the mechanic functions, but I'm not sure. I think it's just a random person that's within charge range that just happens to get charged, and you might die from it. So, as far as I can tell, there's not a way to prevent it. But it should be fine. We will use soul stones here. We'll be able to battle res people. It's a pretty easy fight to get around that. Again, everyone in air, group up. Plenty of time for everyone to group up. Like, look how long these people are coming from like the edge of the room and still have tons of time to get here. So you don't have to be real close. It's very easy for everyone to get here to do this, and plenty of time to get out. Most of the damage here is going to be on the tanks, but it is important after the dive bomb that we are topping people up. Again, people will die from the flame patches that are on the ground, and if you're not topping them up, then they'll have less time to react to the flame patches. Number one priority is always the tanks, but the tanks aren't going to take so much damage where you can't also heal the raid. And then that's just the rest of the fight there. Any questions, comments, concerns?
One lust.
Lust that's actually a good call. I actually prefer Lust at the beginning. I feel like once you get to phase 2, the way that Alar is, it's actually very easy. I know people are dying in this phase, but I actually prefer to just push him directly to phase 2. The few deaths we have here are mostly random deaths, and he's actually pretty easy in this phase. I might change our mind and decide that we don't need it during phase 1 and then just switch to phase 2, because that's just the way it is. But I feel like there's a higher chance of something going wrong in phase one. A tank falling off, getting hit by quill spray, or whatever. I can just see something going wrong and the raid wiping. I don't see that as much here. This is more of an attrition thing, and I think we have very good DPS.
Jackie asked the question about the ramps and LOS, or did y'all see that already?
He mentioned that at the beginning. As long as that the melee and the tanks are on the ledge, it should be fine and shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, the healers stay below, so it's on the others to be inside of you.
Okay, should we get back to our video here?
I have a question. Do the flame patches, do they stay for the whole fight? They don't ever disappear?
They do disappear.
Oh, okay.
They stay around for a while though, but they do disappear.
And they start doing damage immediately, so you gotta get out fast.
Actually, I want to do this. I want to do. Okay, so this is one of my old streams. This is not from the PTR. This is from private server. So definitely, it's not the same as the PTR. So want to put that out there. What you see here is going to be similar, but not the same. I couldn't really find people clearing trash to Void Reaver very well, so I found Void Reaver kills, but people like only post kills and it not like the trash. That's really annoying. So you guys can see this, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so after Alar, you kind of see it on the map here. It splits two ways. To the left, if you go this way, short hallway to Void Reaver. It's mirrored on the opposite side. It's a very similar hallway with different mobs, and it goes to Solarian. In the middle is Kale, but you have to kill all three of those bosses before you can actually go to Kale. So in this hallway, there's not a lot of trash. There are a few big robots. There's a patrolling robot and a couple of the, we'll call them smaller robots, but they're still big robots. The ones here, the crystal, what do they call something? Crystal Destroyer? Crystal Sentinel, okay. Oh, Devastator. This one's Devastator. So the Devastator does a knockback. And he also has a counter mechanic that he does. So it's not like counterspell. It's like the guys in Karazhan, where regularly he'll do an attack back on you. He also does a charged arcane explosion. That does a lot of damage. You can actually get out of that if you're melee. I don't think it does enough damage where you have to get out, but you can. You can move out of that when that happens. When he charges his hands, he does more damage, so just be mindful of that. I think he slaps pretty hard even on PTR, so should have really no issue with these. These other mobs here, what we used to do is we used to separate these because their arcane explosion was a lot if you stacked them. Doesn't appear to be a big deal. Like they don't spam it or use it as much on the PTR, so we're just gonna stack these up. These guys. Their big ability is this overcharge here. This ability can be spell reflected, but it hits for like 15k. So what we're going to do is we're going to kill one quickly, and then I will probably taunt Cash's target off of him just so I can spell reflect if another one hits. We also have the charged arcane explosion. I think it's the same as the other robots. It's just a AoE around them. There's just make sure there's no reason to be in melee range if you're a caster or a healer. And then there's just another stack here. This hallway is very easy. It's just a few of these guys here. But generally, these can be stacked. And our raid here used to be very melee centric. We used to have 2 melee groups and very few casters. We only had 2 warlocks, 2 mages, 2 hunters.
Good old days.
Old Moneth.
Oh, Moneth. Yeah, some names you might recognize in there.
Was Thunder Fury was a threat different on private server?
Yeah, it was broken.
Where's the alley shaman?
I don't think there is an LA shaman. Actually, this guy might be. I remember if Jofi was a Ellie or not. That's someone that wasn't for very long. We had an enhancement shaman.
Yeah, he's dual wielding blacksmithing maces.
Yes. All right. So in this room, this is Void Reaver's room. Obviously, there's a patrol here. These guys are the same as the single pole guys that were in the hallway. The ones that do the reflect mechanics, or I guess you call it retaliate, is better because it doesn't actually reflect your spells. It just damages you when you damage them. It also has offsetting either side here is the smiths. These guys are a pain in the ass. So these guys are gonna be CC'd. What they do is they throw bombs, and the bombs will do an incapacitate effect, and it causes you to drop aggro, and it does a ton of damage. So they're super annoying. So those guys, we just keep sheep. We kill them at the end. There'll be also other packs with the sentinels, the pair of sentinels that we had in the other room. Those are gonna work the same way, where they have the overcharge mechanic, where they can do the ability that one shots the tank. Well, not necessarily. We should have more than 15k, but I will be able to spell reflect them. It says that cash. If you're healing cash with those, you'll need to make sure that you're paying attention to the mob casting. If it's starting to do overcharge to cast on him, then you'll need to make sure you are timing a heal to hit afterwards. There are a couple. Well, there's only like 2 mobs in here that are different. One are these guys that we went over, the smiths. Again, polymorph them. And nothing in here dispels, so they're only going to get free if we have multi shots, or I don't even know why you would seed, but seeds or other AOE breaking them. There's no reason to AOE in this room. Everything in here should be single targeted, so there should be no reason to AOE. But I think a multi-shot or a pet or something might break these. So just be careful of that. The mechanics, the ones with the saw arms here. These guys do they throw like their blades at random people, which causes them to take a few thousand damage, and also a dot afterwards. It's a bleed that does a few thousand damage. It's pretty nasty, but it's manageable. They can be banished, so we may find that we do end up banishing them, but we may not have to. If we do, we'll probably play it safe the first time and do long banishes on them, just so we can get a measure on how much it hurts. But it's something we might not have to worry about. They will also heal like each other, so you definitely don't want to have 2 of them up, because having one heal the other is super annoying. And that's the whole room. We just have to clear it all out because then eventually we kill Void Reaver here. The hardest pack are these 5 packs. And I wouldn't even say they're hard. You do a double banish, you do a sheep, and then you just kill the 2 individual as you would out in the hallway. And then you just deal with them one-on-one. This room is very easy. The hallway to this is very easy. Shouldn't be any wipes. Any questions about that, Trash? All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. I'm not going to show the fight from our perspective because we're going to do a similar mechanic here, but on this, where we do it, we're going to do a stack strat. On this server, we had to pull against the wall, but let me get to the boss and I'll explain why. Let me pull up the other window here. There's a group that does it. They just do it in the middle, and it seems fine. So we'll try that. If not, then we'll try it the way that we do it in this video. Okay, so this is from a Boomkin point of view. So Void Reaver is a pretty simple boss as far as his mechanics. He doesn't have a lot of mechanics. He does a couple of things. So he he will choose a random person that's outside of melee range that he will throw an arcane orb at, and it travels through the air. Wherever you were at when he targeted you is where it's going to land. So if it were to target you and you move far enough away, you shouldn't take any damage. But the area is rather large. If you are too close to the boss, reacting to it can be difficult, and it's possible to be close enough to the boss where you are you're able to get an orb and then explodes, and it still is big enough where it hits the melee. So for those reasons, for that arcane orb, what we're going to opt to do is just to stack everyone underneath the boss, except for one person. And what that will do is that will make it so that the one person that's not in melee range is always going to get the orb, and it's going to be a hunter, and they're just going to run around the room. We're going to take them in the middle. They're going to go around the room in a big circle. That's all they're going to do. He'll keep launching orbs at them, and it'll always miss them. Basically avoids that mechanic entirely. Where this causes a little bit of challenge, and sort of the trade-off here, is he has a second ability, which is Ground Pound, which causes him... I'll go and start the fight here. Which causes him to, on a regular timer, start doing damage to everyone around him. And it will do a significant amount of damage. It's not unhealable, but it's going to require a lot of healing. And that part of the fight is really where your soft enrage is at, because eventually, from trying to heal through all this damage, your healers will run out of mana. You can see the damage here. I think that was actually from someone being too close. Yeah, they were too close with this. They have multiple hunters out here. I don't think we need all these hunters out here. I think it's just one hunter that we have. But they're doing the ground pound here. You see the raid takes a significant amount, and you have to heal everyone up. Now, the other mechanic that the boss has is he will regularly knock back. When he does this, it knocks back and causes a significant amount of threat to be dropped from the tanks. I think it's like 20 or 25% of their threat that they lose from their maximum threat. And so with that in mind, all the tanks need to be pumping. Because when you get knocked back, it needs to be, make sure that the second person's a tank. Like here, they're in trouble. There's actually a priest at second. What we will do is, if there's any shamans that are in a DPS group, you're going to be using your threat totem. So we're going to stack threat and salve totems. Just make sure that we're not having to worry about a threat ceiling at all. I think our DPS will be fine without the other totems. Like maybe if you have to weave it, that's fine, but just make sure that it's down so that we have a higher threat ceiling. But that's it. That's all of his mechanics. He doesn't have a lot. So the arcane orb we're going to avoid entirely by just having a hunter run around the outside. The pound will happen on a regular timer, so we just have to make sure that when that happens, we're healing everybody up. And then everyone needs to watch their threat. Tanks need to pump. It's a pretty straightforward fight. Is affectionately known as Loot Reaver for a reason. So if we can just execute that, then we'll be fine. Hardest part of the fight is probably just running in. If we have people that are straggling behind, that aren't on top of the tank, everyone needs to be ready to move. We're going to do a pull timer, ready check to make sure everyone's ready to move at the same time. You cannot be behind. You also can't be way ahead. You just need to run in. One difference that we will probably do here is I don't like how they're tanking this. There is a chance that, let's say this druid at the top goes crazy with threat. I think you could even dodge the knockback if he gets pretty far ahead and then a knockback happens and he gets thrown. The boss might move with you. And if the boss moves, then all of these casters and healers are eligible to get the arcane orb, and that's a wipe. So what I would like is actually when we pull, we don't churn it. What will happen is all these casters and healers will stay stacked the way they are. Whoever has main threat is going to be standing in front. All of the casters and healers are going to be standing on top of the tank, and then the off tanks, well, when they don't have threat, and the melee will be just behind the boss. Like, you don't have to be way behind, but just enough where you're technically behind the boss. That way, if the boss moves, there's no reason a melee can't move immediately, and the healers and casters should not be out of range. So everyone understanding what I'm talking about, the positioning there?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions at all?
The hunter that's like running around the outside, you're supposed to avoid the orbs, right? But like stay on the outside. Like you're not trying to soak up the damage from it.
No. You're literally just constantly moving.
Okay, gotcha.
Like, you can use your instant attacks or whatever, but you're staying max range, and it's more important that you have the orbs land away from the group than your damage.
Yep.
So it's a very simple job. You can do it very easily. All you do is you just run around the room in a circle on the outside.
Gotcha.
The arcane orb, it does a lot of damage. I don't think it instant kills you, but if you have, it's probably like, I think usually about 80% of your health.
Okay.
I think it's like 7 or 8k or something, yeah. So it might kill a holy priest that doesn't have bubble.
All right, we're switching back over to this stream here. This is the one where they did Alar. I'm just trying to get past this. I think they wiped. Okay, so we'll bounce back to these guys. This is going the other way from here. These three bosses, technically, you can do in any order. You can skip Alar by just not attacking him. The issue, if you do that, is the trash in Alar and the first hallway is connected to him. So if you don't, and if you go to the other bosses and you have taken too long, then the trash will respawn. You'll have to clear it. Each of the hallways as well, the respective hallway trash here is connected to these bosses. So anything past this point now is connected to Solarian. And this trash is a little bit different. You'll see a couple of the same mobs. These these sentinels here. These are the same as the other hallway, the ones that do the overload. You can't really see around the corner, but you'll see it when they pull. There is a larger group that comes in that has a bunch of AoE that they do, and we'll AoE that. There's also a patrol that's going to come in that has. There's like a what's it called, Astromancer Lord. It has a couple of ads as well that are the same as the ones at the beginning that Cleave and Whirlwind. Not the Marshal, but the I think they're what they call Vindicators. No, the Legionnaires. Sorry. So the Legionnaires that Cleave and Whirlwind, as well as the Lord. It's a pretty easy pull. He does a couple of things. I don't know if they've already killed it in the video. Maybe not. But you'll see another one later. Yeah, they're about to pull here. What he does is he does a Dragon's Breath, which will drop aggro on the tank, as well as he'll do mind control on players, multiple players, and then those people just have to be CC'd until it wears off. Please don't kill them. There's also no reason to AoE when he comes in because it's only him and 2 ads, so you're just gonna kill him and then kill the Legionnaires. So got to be careful here. What they're doing is they're actually going to use a hunter to pull this big group, because if myself or someone that doesn't have range, I could probably just use a decapitator because that thing has like 50 yards on it. But if someone tries to pull regularly, it doesn't have increased range. You're going to get this pull that they're about to pull and the robots, and that's probably a wipe. So when this comes in, there are a couple of the healers that come in. The scrap, what are they called? Can't remember the names of them now. It's the ones that heal, but they don't have a dispel. It's the maybe that's the Vindicators. These are all going to get stacked and AoE down. Something important to note: they have like 3 different types of AoE. They have arcane missiles, which you saw shoot on the entire raid. This fire is them. That's bad fire. Our warlocks won't be using this. They'll be using seeds. So if you see fire, get out of it. Please don't try and get people to move and think it's funny. Just AoE, because the hallway is very small. If you guys try and mess around, it may cause a wipe because people are moving instead of trying to heal or DPS. And another thing to do is arcane explosions. So that's the reason that these 2 mobs are going to be pulled up by Cash and I. And that's what the melee is going to go on. Melee don't go on this giant pack. Just kill the marked targets. But no one else should kill the marked targets. Only melee. And then everyone else is going to AoE down all of the casters. Because these guys are not important. It just gives melee something to do. This is also the best hallway and the Solarian room for loot. There's a ton of ads that you kill down this hallway. So if you are doing a trash clear and you want to just do that for epics, working your way towards this hallway is the best you're going to get if you can manage it. Yep, and here you'll see how they stack them. This is how it's going to be in the PTR. So you can see that they don't cast as much as it did on the private server. So they're definitely not anywhere near as dangerous. Just get the skull down, and then you'll rotate to the X. You can just cleave them a little bit, but just make sure you're killing one at a time. End of the hallway will be another big group, just like this one. Again, make sure that you don't get too close. I don't remember if they pull forward or pull back, but same thing. I'm just going to have the 2 ads that you're going to pull to the side. So you don't want to fight in this doorway. Either what we're going to do is we're going to have Chetty just run in, and we'll use this room. So everyone will just move in. We'll use the room up here, just as they're doing, basically. And those ads should be pulled out. He should pull those to the right. I don't know why they're taking that all in the middle, but it's fine. But yep, everyone's going to AoE. If you are melee, you're going to go on the single targets that are outside of the AoE, and rinse and repeat. The room moving in here, the lord that I talked about before that has the mind control will be patrolling around the room with the legionnaires. So make sure that you don't run ahead because you might accidentally aggro that before that we're ready. So. Trying to see if I can see where the patrol's at. There it is. It's on the left side. So, a couple things. So when the patrol is making its way around the left, it patrols around the middle of the purple area here. These packs are big packs, just like in the hallway, except there's, I think, a few more of the mobs. Again, there's the two of the elite mobs that you'll be pulling out from there. They'll be marked. Yeah, I think they weren't ready for that pull. Like half the raid wasn't even there when they pulled. But you can see if you charge ahead too early or try to pull before people are actually in the room, this is what happens. You want to move forward a little bit here because they wiped. Sorry, I think this is patrol. I wanted to see that. Yeah, okay, so this is the patrol it's talking about here. Also, this is important too. If you can see here, where that patrol is, that's about the limit of how close you want to get to Solarian. She is in the middle of this giant platform, and she aggroes closer than the edge of her platform. So where they're at, that's like the limit of where I want to see you. I don't want to see anyone past that point, or even I don't even want to see you necessarily push that point. Really do your best to stay on the gray area on the outside. If you touch the edge of the purple area, that's fine, but definitely don't try to run from anything towards Solarian, because what will happen is not only will you pull the boss, but everything in this room aggroes if she aggroes. So, if see where he's at, that's like very limit. That's spooky for me, even that they're that close. So when they pull in, pull these away. Now, what I would like to see happen. I see only the one tank on here. As I mentioned, she can mind control multiple people. Cash, I'm actually going to have you and Chetty both tank the two ads, and you're going to put threat into both of them. That way, if one of you gets mind controlled, you still have them. These getting into the raid will cause a lot of damage, but the primary target's always going to be the Scryer here, just because of the mind control that they do. Actually, I don't think the Scryer does mind control. It's the Lord that does the mind control. The Scryer just does AoE. I'm actually not sure why that mob's in here. I don't remember being in here. We still focus that first. These guys are not that big of a deal by themselves. Alright, and then basically what you do is just keep going around the outside of the room. Make sure you're not pulling a patrol with the ads. We're going to skip ahead a little bit because... Let's see, did it wipe again? Jesus, okay. Alright, we're going to still watch one of these polls where you can actually see it from normal. So these pulls, they're split in two. So this platform and this platform, they come at the same time. This is not just one group. Why it's important is when we go in, you cannot just start lighting up seeds into this group because the second group has to make its way in. If a seed goes off, then they're just going to run wild on the raid. So these two marked ads, that's not the right mark, there we go, are going to be picked up by the tanks, other tanks, me and Cash, and they don't have to be pulled out. They can just be AoE'd in there. It's fine. Well, actually, we're going to pull them out just because I don't want the melee to take a bunch of damage. Same as the hallway. This is the same thing as what's in the hallway. Just like I said, be mindful that you wait for that second group to come in. That's the biggest thing why I wanted to show you the pull, is that it's not just the first group. There's the second group you have to worry about. Melee, I wouldn't go in. I would just wait for us to pull Skull and X out and over to like the side, and then you can DPS them. It's not that they're dangerous. It's just that you're not going to be contributing much to the giant pack of mobs there. So I'll skip forward till they actually get ready to pull the boss here. All right, so Solarian is also a very easy boss. She will have a couple of abilities in the first phase, and then it's a multi-phase fight. So first thing is she's not really tankable in the first phase. She basically just picks a random target and will do arcane missiles on them. The arcane missiles are probably going to be the number one thing that kill people on this fight. So it does a ton of damage, and if the healers are waiting until they see someone starting to take damage to heal them, it's too late. You either need to have a focus frame that shows target of target, or if you're not assigned, general raid healing, or if you don't have a specific target to heal, like these off tanks, as I mentioned, or I'll be mentioning later, you need to make sure that you are healing off target to target, because if you wait, it'll be too late. It would be nice if one of the priests is assigned to bubble on those people, just to buy a little bit of time, and you will need to use slightly bigger heals. You don't need to use like max rank big heal, but you need to make sure that you're putting enough healing in there quickly to make sure the person doesn't die. That's going to be the number one way people die, is from the arcane missiles. So she'll just stand there and she'll just cast those at people. Ideally, she doesn't move up towards the raid because it gives a little bit more travel time for people to actually take damage. Now, there are two tanks that are going to be over here. This is going to be Chetty and Cash. They're going to have arcane resist, and they're just going to stand over here the whole raid until the end. Not really doing anything. You could heal people, you could innervate, you could do whatever you want, but you can't go towards the raid. There's going to be a debuff that Solarian will place on a random person. It does some damage to you, and after it expires, it will then jump to the next closest person and do more damage. So what you need to do, and this is above finishing the casting of your heal, this is more important than most anything, is if you get the debuff, what you need to do is you need to run over near the tanks, not on top of the tanks, but near the tanks, just so you're close enough to pass them. Because as I mentioned, when it ends, I think it's like 8 seconds, or maybe it's 10. It's not a lot of time. It will jump to the closest person. So even if you're only here at this spot, you don't have to be on top of them. It will still jump to them. Now, why you don't want to stand on top of them is because they're going to keep getting debuffs from people during the fight, because it's going to bounce back and forth between them, and more people are going to be adding the debuffs to them. If you go and stand on top of them, then they're going to start passing their debuffs back to you. So really, they're going to be right on top of each other. You probably want to just be like 5-10 yards from them, just so that they're closer than the other portion of the raid. The rest of the raid, it's important that you stack, that you stay close together. This is kind of an important mechanic. Does anyone have any questions about transferring over the stacks? gonna assume everyone understands that. So we'll push through here just to see the first person that actually gets it. That will move it over, and you'll get a raid warning. I'm sure it's built into DBM. You'll probably get whispers and other annoying shit. But you also get a debuff. You'll start sparkling. She doesn't do it constantly, but you can see this person here is going to get it. It's going to run over there. Doesn't actually have to be that close. He could literally be here, which is fine. That's the first debuff, so I mean that's whatever. But if these two druids weren't on top of each other, and say one was like a foot or two over, then they might end up spreading debuffs back to him. You don't have to be that close. Just make sure you're closer to them than anyone else. The casts that Solarian has that she does are not interruptible. You can't interact with it at all. There doesn't have Curse of Tongues doesn't do anything. She also will repeatedly hit the raid with a like a Moonfire spell, like it hits the whole raid that does damage. And throughout the fight, you'll get a stacking debuff that lowers your arcane resist to a maximum of -75. So the raid is not going to, except for the 2 tanks, the raid is not going to wear arcane resist because it's whatever you're putting on, you're just going to lose it. So it's not worth putting anything on. After a certain amount of time, she will transport to the middle, and she will disappear. We'll start the second part of the fight, and this is the part that goes back and forth. There'll be 3 of these spotlights that go out. There'll be ads that spawn from all 3 of these. What I would like to see is hunters kind of setting up slows in front of the raid, not in the raid. Like just put them like if you see like the them coming in, just put them like 10 yards in front. Tremor totems are great too, especially if Shibuti's here. Like if there was one right for this close one, especially just put a tremor totem nearby, or sorry, earthbind totem, not tremor. Earthbind totem for the ones close, just so they start getting slowed. These ads, they don't do a lot of damage. You're just gonna blow them up. Just AoE them right away. Just start putting damage in and killing them. They will die very quickly. After these are dead, then from those 3 spotlights where they were at, there's going to be 2 of them are going to be new ads. One will be the boss. So before we go on the boss, we have to kill these priests. The priests do 2 things. One, they will do a heal that needs to be interrupted, and we'll have those assigned. So just interrupt the heal. She'll have another cast that they do, which is a smite. That's just there to bait you. Don't interrupt the smite. Just interrupt the heal and kill them quickly. They don't do a lot of damage. It's just the heal that's annoying. So as you can see here, because of how far away she is, the raid has to move. Now this is important. The raid has to move to be within range, and the 2 tanks will need to make sure that you're kind of mirroring the movement and moving up, because if you stay way back there, if a melee gets the debuff, they're never going to make it to you. It's going to be too far. So we need to be moving up to be aside the raid, which is exactly what these guys are doing. And then they'll just rinse and repeat. So this will continue back and forth a few times. Pretty easy. Like I said, the biggest threat here is not reacting to the people getting hit by the arcane missiles. She will constantly switch to who she's hitting, and just make sure that we're reacting quickly enough to those people. Sometimes she'll get a little lapse in her auto casts, and she'll run up to people. Don't worry too much about that. You can back up like this group has. That's fine. These tanks are now way too far. They need to be up here. Again, the ads come out. You can just AoE. Don't need to wait. You just go. See here, perfect. This guy's moving over next to the two tanks with a debuff, but he's not stacked on them. So he will always transfer to them, but they're not closer to him than each other. So they will never transfer anything back to him. But if he's stacked on top of them, he would be too close. Once it gets to about this point in the fight, these two tanks, even though they have arcane resist, are going to be taking significant damage because they're retaining all of those debuffs. Instead of them bouncing around the raid, they're going to be taking all the damage themselves. So you see Star there got very close to dying because it got arcane missiles while it had debuffs. So it's important that we have adequate healing for these tanks to make sure that we're keeping them up. As well as having people who are dedicated to being arcane missiles. So the healing assignments are going to be really key for this fight to make sure that we have the right healing. There's not like a regular tank assignment until the last phase, which we'll go over in a second here. These are the tanks for this fight, and then the rest of the raid is just getting hit by the arcane missiles mostly. All right, I think we're about to push the last phase here. I think it's at 15%. Still have to kill the priest though. Maybe it's 20%. Yeah, it's 20%. So during this phase, she completely changes her abilities. Instead of doing anything arcane, she's going to start hitting the main tank with Shadow. Boss is tauntable, so I will make sure to taunt that off so that whoever had the highest threat won't be getting hit. But if the boss gets loose and it gets resisted and I miss my mocking blow, try to drop threat as much as you can if you're top, just to make sure that I won't be able to build back up. So really, if you're top and you don't have a way to completely remove your threat, you're probably dead. And even if you do, you're probably just killing the next person that's on the list, to be honest. I don't even know that Bop works because it does shadow damage, so it probably just attacks right through it. That debuff will continue to bounce until the end, though, until the boss is no longer alive. So these two tanks will, while they won't get any more debuffs, they probably have 6 to 8 or so on them by that point, which are causing them to take a bunch of damage. Any questions about the fight? Okay, so what we'll do is move forward. After all three of those bosses die, there's walls that are in place up towards Kale that will disappear. So then you can actually clear towards them. We'll have to clear trash, and it's probably some of the most annoying trash in here. You get a couple new ads, and gotta deal with them a little bit differently. See if I can afford it without actually doing it. All right, first pack is going to be a patrol, since they bring it up. The patrol comes from just in front of this group here. You have to really get them at the... Oh, they're not going to do the patrol first. Okay, that's fine. They're going to pull us all the way back. All right, so this has... what is it? Crimson Knights in there. Blood Knights, or rather. These are just another paladin that does hammer justice and cleanses. There are the Centurions, which are the big issue in here. I don't know if I think they've CC'd them, because I don't see them in here. Yeah, they probably CC'd them, which makes sense. The Centurions, they do an Arcane Flurry, which causes them to spin and do a ton of damage, and causes them to kind of like shoot out some arcane damage as well. They can be polymorphed, but because these guys dispel, if you're going to do that, you need to pull these mobs away so they're not dispelling them. You can save them for last. If you are a mage assigned to sheep the Centurions, you need to make sure that when we are DPSing them, you are just spamming sheep. You're just constantly sheeping, because that's the only way we can interrupt the Arcane Flurry, which is what they're doing here. Yeah, see how they shoot out? So that does a ton of damage itself, and also does a ton of damage to anyone around them. So I think they do it here. You can see how they just continually sheep it over and over again. It doesn't matter if it's casting. I don't care about your damage. You're going to keep sheeping over and over again, because the ability needs to be interrupted right away. And so if you're sheeping every like second and a half, then you can stop that Arcane Flurry before anyone dies from it. So big point for mages, if you're on those, you're sheeping over and over again. There's also the mages in there that do like some blizzards and like a frostbolt volley. They're not that dangerous. The big thing is the Centurions. These guys are the big issue. So we will probably do something similar to that, just because I don't want to have to kill them first, and I don't like the idea of two of them being up, because that damage will also kill tanks. So we'll probably do something similar to how they did it in this raid, where we sheep and pull back. All right, patrol here. This has an Inquisitor. These guys aren't really a big deal. They're like a Shadow Priest. They do Mind Flays and Shadow Words. One thing cool about them is they do get a Power of Infusion to put on themselves. That can be spell stolen. It can be dispelled too, but may as well, if we're gonna get it anyways, may as well just spell steal it and take it. Because it doesn't really matter if he has it, so it's not like it has to be purged right away. He does come with Centurions, so those, that's really close to the consecrate there. Just like the previous one, want to make sure that we're constantly sheeping this over and over again. Don't want to deal with the flurries. All right, and then so our group, same as the first large group when they came up into the room. You're just gonna sheep both. Imagine they're gonna pull these down out of LOS. I didn't actually watch these trash pulls that they were doing. Yeah, same thing, pulling them out of LOS so that they can't dispel. Probably exactly how we're gonna treat that. Pull's very easy if those Centurions are not in there. These Inquisitors, not Inquisitors, sorry, these Blood Knights here don't matter. Other than the dispel, so them beating on tank doesn't really do anything. The biggest thing is their Hammer of Justice, which stuns. Again, just like regular Hammer of Justice, it can be dispelled though. So if a tank gets hit with that, you just dispel them. I'll go and move forward a little bit here. The moving into the room is kind of sketchy because there's a few patrols. Also, there are 3 packs that are in the room that don't like to give you a lot of maneuverability. If you go too far to the right, too far to the left, you're going to end up pulling them. I don't know how they end up doing it. You can see a pack quite around to the far edge here. Here we go. There, trying to get them signaling this pack. So this is there are going to be 3 of these 4 packs here. It's going to have a Marshal in it, which was part of the group that the ones at the beginning that whirlwind and did a bunch of damage. The larger damage one, which is to the right there, this guy. So melee don't go on this. It's going to be a Speller here, as well as an Inquisitor. See, part of the issue is that if you can see how much he dispel. This one dispels a lot, unlike some of the other paladins. This is going to be just basically sheeped constantly, just like they're doing. Once the Blood Knight is dead, then you don't need to dispel anymore, or sorry, Poly anymore, because there's nothing else to dispel. Melee, I honestly probably wouldn't even go on the Marshal. I would just hang back. Cannot be sheeped or anything, so nothing to prevent that. And then same thing with the Centurion. Probably want to move away from that before popping the sheep, but just keep sheeping it when we go to engage it. If you really want to get through these pulls faster, what you would do is you'd have the mage's sheep still. You'd have the range start with the Marshal, and the melee start with the other pack and cleave them, just because the melee can't even go on the Marshal, so there's a lot of wasted DPS time that they can't even do. But there'll be a patrol in the middle of the room. I think they already dealt with, and there's a patrol that comes from this entrance, which is the Inquisitor plus 2 Centurions. You don't need to clear down the hallway. You just need to clear anything that's in the room or patrols into the room. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and move forward until they actually get to the boss here. Okay. So Kael'thas is a long fight. It's probably going to be about 15 minutes. It's about 5 phases. Yeah, 5 phases. So the boss will automatically go through an RP and start as soon as you get close. Don't really want to move past the halfway point. Also, if you are, hopefully, see if we can face it towards the start of the all. So yeah, you can see where they're at. This is about the aggro range. You don't really want to move past this halfway point. This is important because there may be situations where we need to res people, but like the halfway point of this is like your no-go zone. And that extends the length of the room. So you should be able to res people basically on the bottom of the stairs here from here, but don't try to push past this just to res. Like those people are just gonna have to fly back, hope there's not horde camping the graveyard, because if you go closer, you see where these guys are at, that's gonna aggro the boss, and then you're done. The first phase of the fight is very easy. It's sort of just kind of sets you up so that you can learn the bosses, the mini bosses, and go and start the fight. So Kael'thas is in the middle here, and then he's surrounded by his advisors, and they come out in a set order, and you do one at a time. So the first one is Thaladred. So Thaladred is very simple. He will just pick someone and fixate on them. Cannot be tanked, can't, no way, you can't taunt him. He's going to just pick someone and just, amble towards them. So if he gets too close to you, he is going to hit you for like 5-6k, and then just throw you across the room. And generally he'll pick a new target after that. He also has a silence around him that's like 8 or 10 yards that will, so if he's around you, you want to move away. And that's not the only reason, because if you're too close and he switches target, then he might just switch to you and kill you. So I would be careful as melee. If you want to try to get away with some damage, you can DPS him for a short while after he fixates, but then I would maybe DPS like 5-6 seconds and then back away, just so make sure he's not going to just turn and slap you. That's basically it. So what we want to try to do is kind of pull him a little bit towards the back of the room to set him up for the later fight. So part of this is that later on, these guys are going to come back into the fight. Where he's at there is fine. We don't want to kill him at the front of the room, though. So up near the stage or anywhere, what we generally want to do is be pulling him back past this midway point for later on in the fight. Doesn't have to be an exact spot, just away from the front. We don't, in the private server, we used to pull him like all the way to the back. I don't think we need to do that. I think it'll be fine because he's going to drop fairly quickly once we focus on him, because that's when all the advisors come back up later. That's when we're going to use hero, and he's gonna be the first to fall. So the next boss that comes up is Sanguinar. Sanguinar, he's very simple. He just melees. The only thing he does is that he does a large AoE fear. That's it. So it's like 35-yard fear or something. So they're gonna pull him all the way over here towards the corner, just to set up for later on in the fight. But that's his only mechanic, is he does a big AoE fear. So you still want to have him in the middle of the room. Later on, making sure whoever is tanking this later or is going to be near that, so like for instance melee groups or whoever else, need to have tremor totems, so that they're not getting feared and then run all over the place. Next boss that will come up is Copernican. That's a woman on the right here. She is caster only, or ranged only, I should say. You don't want to melee. You don't want to send your pets in. Nobody should be near her. This will be tanked by a warlock, and what this will do is allow us to have a high threat because of warlocks being able to generate really good threat, as well as being able to wear gear in order to tank that. So we'll have dedicated healers for that. She also does a conflagrate. Now I don't know what they're doing here. Is they're having a bear tank it. I think, and I could be mistaken about this, that the conflagrate will only target someone who is within 30 yards. If everyone is outside of that, then no one's going to get conflagrated. Conflagrate will hurt you and daze you and also do damage to anybody near you. So I think the only person that really that's going to have a hard time with the range is Shadow Priests. I would say Shadow Priests probably just don't even worry about Copernican. I wouldn't. I would say just all other range DPS be max range. I don't think we need a soaker for this. We could, change that, but I don't think this is necessary. So what we will do is we will just have everyone be max range for this, and no Shadow Priests. Yeah, so she can flags someone within 30 yards anyways. I think it's just there to offset it. I think that person may be able to move further back outside of 30 yards. I'm not sure. The last advisor is Telonicus. This is the engineer. He will throw a bomb on the main target constantly. It's good if the tank can move back a little bit. What they're going to try to do here is keep them together. I don't know how necessary that is. We may try it. The thing I don't like about this is that it puts you close to Sanguinar, which means that you're going to constantly eat Sanguinar's sphere, and I don't know how effective the cleave is really going to be on that. We may end up tanking these in separate spots, like pulling Sanguinar further back and having Telonicus further up, and we'll just kill Telonicus first without the need for fear. It'll keep higher uptime. I think the added damage output is better than on one target is better than the little bit of cleave that we may end up getting, because the tanks are going to have to be adjusting anyways because of the fears, and then having to worry about hitting the melee with the bombs. So I'm leaning towards splitting these. I don't think we need to have them. Actually, let me go back a little bit because I kind of want to a little bit of talk about here because it's going into the next phase. Oh, this is too far back. Okay, and then another 1 second. Okay, so another thing that he does is he will randomly place a debuff on a player that is called Remote Toy. That will last for a minute. That causes you to every once in a while be stunned for a few seconds. It's kind of annoying. It's not the end of the world. You can, I think Free Action Potion will work for the duration. It doesn't remove it. And I think that you should be able to use, if you really wanted to, Living Action Potions to get out of it. But again, Living Action Potion, I don't think removes it either. Okay, so after those are dead, then Kel'Thas will spawn a ton of weapons here. So there are, there's staff, there's a sword, a dagger, a healing mace, shield, a bow. This is the weapons that basically the whole raid is going to be using. We have to kill them, and then once you kill them, you can loot the respective item off of them. So, the hunters are all going to be using the bow. It comes with arrows too. I think there's a macro for that. I don't know if it works, but it allows you to, because you have to get the arrows out, and you have to unbundle them and then use them. So I think there's a macro for doing that, so you don't have to try and fumble around your bags. The way we're going to handle this is all of this is going to be AoE'd with Chetty, except for 2 of them. The bow is going to be off-tanked by a hunter. The bow itself has like a multi-shot that they do, so the hunter wants to be standing off to the side so that nobody else is getting hit. And it will teleport, which can be really annoying if anyone's in melee range. This includes a pet. So if you are a hunter that's assigned to tank the bow, just put your pet on something else in this AoE pack. So don't put your pet on there because it will teleport then. The other one that we're going to be pulling out is the axe, because the axe is does a whirlwind that does a ton of damage. So if we have all the melee in here and that's spinning, that's going to kill people. Everything else in here is just going to be AoE down. The staff is probably one of our first kill targets. I might try to get probably the staff first. I used to do the infuser first because the healers could get that. We'll see how much the damage is. Because if the damage that the tanks are taking is low, then the healers have a ton of time to get that, and I'm not worried about it. But the staff can be useful even in this phase, because the staff, when it drops and the casters pick it up, and also Gorg, it has the ability that when you use it, it puts a buff on anyone within 30 yards of you to not get affected by disorient or stun effects. So if anyone still has Remote Toy on them at this moment, for instance, that does stun every once in a while, that will no longer affect you. So the disorients that Kale will do later and everything else, it's very important that when people get the staff that they use it and put the buff on everyone. Let me go back here. He just had it up. The Cosmic Confusers, the healing mace here. All of these are they're legendary weapons. They're really good. Like this increases your healing by 630 MP5. There's no reason that you should not be using this. So if you are a staff user, make sure that you are bringing an offhand to pair with this. But even if you don't even have an offhand, this is better than whatever staff that you're using. One of the big things that it does is it gives friendly targets that you heal. Reduces the damage you take from fire and shadow spells by 50%. So this is going to be big for Kale himself, but also for whoever is healing the Warlock tank later when we go into the next phase. Will make it significantly easier because that Warlock will be taking less damage. It's important that you heal them early because what's going to happen after these weapons are dead going into the next phase, it's in 36 seconds, all of the advisors are going to come up at the same time. You have to fight all of them at once. That's probably the hardest part of the whole fight is trying to get that down. So if you're healing the lock, they're going to have that buff ahead of time before that attack goes out. So the Infinity Blades, they will add a debuff to the target that you're attacking that causes them to take extra magic damage. It's very good. It's nothing you really have to worry about. Just whatever you're hitting is going to just take more damage. But it has a secondary effect of later on there will be a mind control that happens that Kale will do. So people will get mind controlled. If you use a special ability, if it's in your offhand, use a shiv, or it's your main hand, so you use like a hamstring or whatever. It will dispel whoever's mind controlled. So it's important that the melee do get the dagger, and as I've asked to please level it up. If you can, there's also going to be a sword that you can use for your main hand. Unfortunately, Shibuti will only be able to use the dagger because we can't use swords. And then the axe is going to be basically just swag. The shield is also important for basically me and Chetty. It causes us to, if we're tanking Kale, to be able to take one big hit for later on in the fight, and we'll kind of go over that phase as soon as it happens here.
So if you're Gorg, you don't get a legendary weapon, is what you're saying.
He gets a staff.
Oh, he even gets a staff? Okay.
He gets a staff too. It has bear stats on it as well as the bear attack power and shit. So he would get the staff. Basically, the only person that doesn't really get like a big weapon is probably just Shibuti, because he doesn't get like two weapons for dual wield. Oh, so this phase, all the advisors are up. You have just under 3 minutes here to kill them. If you don't kill them, you carry over whatever you have left into Kale. So if you're close, you're still fine. Also, as you kill like any sort of council fight, as you kill the advisors, it gets easier. Main primary target is going to be Thaladred at the start. You want to get him down immediately. This healer's just going to go around healing people. It's what healers do. It's fine. But you got to be careful. You got to know who he's targeting. You got to pay attention to where he's at. And he's very smartly, he moves away from the path for a couple of reasons. One, as I mentioned, he just changes targets. So if you're too close and he changes, he's going to turn around, he's going to smack you. That's just what's going to happen. And also, as I mentioned, he has a silence around him. So even if he doesn't target you, he may silence you, and while you just can't heal for a while. It's also important. Part of the reason why I had mentioned it's important to pull him further back is because if he's too close to the front, he might just turn and hit the melee or the tank, or the worst, it would be over by Copernican over on the right, where the Warlock tank is. That's the absolute worst place. If you find yourself kiting the Thaladred, ideally, if you can, and you have a choice, you want to try to keeping him in the further away. You don't want him to be chasing you. Like if he's, I don't even know who he's targeting right now, but if he's targeting this person right here, and he starts like moving further towards Kael'thas, and he switches, he might switch towards one of the tanks or one of the melee. But if he kite further towards the back of the room and does switch towards them, that's fine because there's more room for them. So also, if you're a melee here, like he's in this position, you get targeted, you need to run away. You don't run like towards the wall or anything. You need to get away because you don't know where that fear is going to take you. But he's the number one kill target just because he's not controllable. Like he can put people in a bad spot. He should die very quickly. This is where you hero. This phase is where you hero. And you can see how far this fear goes. So he's over here, and people over here are getting feared, right? It's 35 yards. So there should the healers, if you're healing over here, you need to be max. If you're healing this side, you need to be max range. You need to make sure that you're not getting hit by that. If you are, if you have the ability, you have a shaman in your group, charmer totem, so that you're not getting feared. Priest, fear ward yourself, right? Just make sure that you're not getting feared all over the place because it's not a big deal, but if you get feared early, it can cause things to go haywire pretty quick. From this point, so that's where pretty much everybody is going to kill Thaladred. From this point, the ranged priority is Copernican because the melee can't deal with them at all. Shadow Priests, again, you're not going for Copernican. You're just coming over here. You're killing the ads over here. Ideally, you're going to kill Sanguinar just because he has the fear. And then Telonicus, because Telonicus just has the bomb that he throws in the tank and the toy. And the toy doesn't affect the raid anymore because everyone should have the staff buff that prevents you from getting hit. Now, the staff buff is not something you need to spam constantly. Anybody that's hit by it is going to get the buff, and it's just going to last. It's not like a 10-second buff or anything like that.
Do you think it's worth Shiv spamming with the dagger to get that debuff stacked?
Yeah, if the debuff's not up, yeah, that is gonna be a ton of damage added.
I have to figure out a way to like track it if it doesn't just have a priority on my frames, I guess.
Yeah, because it increases magic damage by 5% and it stacks 5 times. So
Yeah, it's
it's
pretty big
25% extra damage.
for the classes that matter.
Yeah. And here they didn't kill it in time. They still have this advisor up as Kel'Thas spawns. I don't think they meant to have a druid tank this right now. It's probably whoever's tanking Telonicus that they meant to have. For this is the reason why I'm not going to be tanking these ads. It's going to be Chetty and Cash, so that I don't get stuck here. Maybe not. Really, you don't want a druid to be tanking this because they cannot use the shield. So I don't really know why they have a druid tanking this. All right, that begins phase 4. So no more advisors, no more weapons. It's just Kel'Thas at this point. So Kel'Thas, he has a few abilities. The first thing is, as I talked about, he does a mind control. So a few people randomly will just get mind controlled. Need to make sure that when that happens, melee number one responsibility is getting that removed from people. More important than anything else. And that should hit anybody but the main tank. If they get really big, should be pretty easy to see them, and it's quick to get off. So just make sure you're doing that.
Do you have to land special abilities or just like a melee hit with the weapon?
An ability with the weapon.
Okay.
Special only, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to shiv or hamstring, as I mentioned,
Yeah,
depending on your weapon. Now the Phoenix, he'll also spawn Phoenixes. These we do not attack. This is going to be tanked by Chetty. What they would do is they move around the room. They do an AoE around them. Ideally, that never gets into the raid like that. And it's awful. But when it does those AoE pulses, it damages everyone around him, as well as the Phoenix. So eventually, the Phoenix will die. And when the Phoenix dies, as you can see down here, will spawn an egg. We'll go over this in a second. So when the egg spawns, everybody needs to switch to kill the egg. You have 15 seconds to kill the egg, which should be easy. Should have no problem killing the egg in 15 seconds, but you won't kill it if people aren't paying attention. So you need to switch over, attack it, kill it, because if you don't, because if you do it's 170, basically 175 k in 15 seconds. So what is it, like 12k DPS or something? Should not be an issue killing that. But if you don't kill the egg in time, he keeps spawning these phoenixes. That egg will turn into another phoenix. And so instead of just having the one that you have to deal with, now we're going to have 2 phoenix. And then you'll have 3 phoenix. Basically, if you don't kill them, it becomes an impossible feat because then you'll have to kill 2 eggs. And you just won't have the DPS. And eventually you'll just have too many. I've seen some kills where they start getting towards the end and they just say screw it. And they end up having like 5-6 eggs, which seems like a nightmare. But it's possible. So now the... see, I like this. I prefer this, and I wish they would have done this earlier, is pulling forward a little bit. I don't like taking up on the platform. I like having a little bit more room out here. But he will do also... ooh, that's not good. The flame strikes here. So if you can see this giant graphic on the floor, so please make sure you have spell detail enabled. This is heavily telegraphed. Not only is it on the ground, but there's like these spinning eggs here too. It's a very noticeable graphic. Nobody should die from this. It's a flame strike. It's going to do damage to anybody in there, and it's going to also leave a patch on the ground, and the patch is bigger than the actual graphic. So that will do damage over time to anybody in there. So nobody should get hit by that. The only way I can see you getting hit by that is if like you're mind controlled and the mind control ends and you didn't have time to move. That's the only thing I can see. The boss will also do move forward to their next attempt here. Okay, to a similar spot. Actually, this is their kill here, so let me move forward here. Alright, I think I just gotta... Actually, this might be the all ad phase. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the boss will do regular fireballs, which can and should be interrupted as you have them on clone. They're not going to kill a tank, but they do a lot of damage. So as often as you can, and it's kickable, you just kick it. Like, we'll have so many interrupts, it shouldn't really get off. It does. It's not a big deal if one of them hits. His regular punch doesn't hit for much. The fireball is going to do a pretty hefty chunk of damage. But the other thing that you have to worry about is this timer here, shock barrier. So when he does that, he's going to put up a shield around him that has 80,000 health. And when he puts that up, he's going to start channeling Pyroblast. So those have to be interrupted. Now, the first one, you might not be able to interrupt in time because that's a lot of damage to go through. But the shield is what helps with that. The shield that has an ability to block up to 100,000 damage. The Pyroblast itself does about 50k, so if it goes through, it's probably just going to kill the tank.
Yeah, and you can't interrupt while that barrier is up, so you have to get it down before you waste them.
Right. That's why I don't understand why they're risking it with the druid here. I think that's why they had previous wipe, is because they didn't get through the shock barrier in time. The druid just dies. And then occasionally you can see this too. He's doing Arcane Disruption. That's just a big Arcane AoE. If anybody doesn't have the staff buff, it also disorients you. But everybody should have the staff buff. There's no reason not to. All right. And then that takes you to phase 4. If there's a Phoenix, at this point you can just DPS it because he's immune. So as they're doing, they're just finishing the Phoenix and then they're going to kill the egg. He's not looking at it, but the wall behind him, he gets bigger and the wall behind him explodes and there's a bunch of graphics. But when he comes back here, he's going to be the same, except there'll be an additional, like, what call it, like, let's say a phase. Yeah, it's stage 6, but he does like a partial phase that he'll do. So he'll still have the Pyroblast, the Fireballs, the Phoenixes, so all that's still going to be around. But what you're going to see is he's going to do Gravity Lapse, which is going to throw everybody up into the air. It's going to happen right now. So it's going to teleport everyone around him, throw everybody way up in the air, and you're going to float for about 30 seconds. Now, you want to spread out because he does a chain ability that does damage. Melee, you probably shouldn't even bother trying to get too close to him. These clouds, these blue clouds, do a bunch of extra damage. So if you get hit by those, actually, no, it's not damage. It's a health reduction. That's what it is. So there's a stacking debuff when you get close to these that reduces your maximum health by 10%, and it keeps stacking. So if you start to move towards those, your health is just going to be reduced gradually. I think the debuff lasts a long time, so you don't want to move near those. But the chain that he does, the chain lightning, it will target someone randomly and it keeps jumping. It's kind of like a Cthulhu beam, so you have to spread out. It's not a big deal if a couple of people get hit, but if everybody's stacked, then people are going to die. So just try to stay away from other people. Obviously DPS if you can, heal if you can. Don't touch the floor, because if you touch the floor, actually, was he on the floor? Because he shouldn't be able to touch the floor. Take a look at this druid. Okay, he's not. Okay. I was gonna say, I thought he was on the floor. If you touch the floor, then it is going to throw you way up into the air and you're going to take a bunch of damage. So, not everyone needs to be on or near the floor, but you don't want to be way up because you will take fall damage once the debuff ends. So, from the gravity lapse. So, if you're like way up there, you're just going to take a ton of fall damage. Now, here, they're starting to get overwhelmed by some of these phoenixes. They probably... I didn't actually watch the end of this kill here, but I'm going to bet that they start to ignore the phoenix or... and then just kind of like go with it. Nope, they're still going on the eggs, alright. It's kind of hard to push from this point, because I think he's still at like 20%, and that's still a good amount of health. But you can see here, even trying to get that one egg down, they're still trying to deal with these other phoenix that are coming in. So now they have to switch to another egg, and then it's another egg. So, and they're not really... I don't even know if they killed that one in time. So they barely got it. But that's it. This is just repeats then until the fight's over. He still has his other parts here. So even at 30%, he's still at 1.75 million. So it's a lot of health to chew through. It's a long fight. And really, him, even in this phase, is, in my opinion, easier than the 4 advisors at the same time. I think that's the hardest part of the fight. This looks like there's a lot going on. There's really not. He's not directly attacking people. He's just putting up a beam. So you just make sure you stay spread, stay from the orbs, don't touch the ground, right? Like, there's not much else going on. There's a lot of visual going on. The flame strike, nobody should get hit by that. It's so obvious. Like, nobody should be spacing out enough where you can't see that. It's super bright. There's like spinning things above it. Like, I can't think of any good reason that someone should get hit by that. So please make sure that you have your spell detail on. Make sure you have your UI in a way that you can see your character. It's probably the most telegraphed spell in TBC. Yeah, that's they're gonna keep going through that until the end of the fight. So that's the last boss of TK. Does anyone have any questions about the phases, the advisors, Kael'thas himself, the phoenixes? All right, gonna guess everybody understands fully, and we'll have no problem in one shot everything.
Easy.
Yeah.
But
Are we starting in SSC or is it just comp dependent where we go?
we're still waiting for Chetty, because if
Okay.
we don't have Chetty, it's gonna limit what we can do. If we do have Chetty, we'll probably roll through SSC up till Vash, and then TK.
Sounds good.
But that's the whole fight. So this fight's long enough where you may, well, no, because the advisors are like the four advisors right in the middle, so you might get 2 heroes, but I don't think it'd be that long. Let's see, we're at what is it, 38:45? When did they actually get the 4 advisors?
Might need to rebuff 10-minute buffs.
Oh, actually, something I forgot about. The weapons, I think, only last
15 minutes.
15 minutes. That's what it is. Yeah.
So we should be fine unless we lose a lot of people.
Yeah. Eventually, yeah, we had that happen on the private server once. The fight dragged on so long because Kael'thas himself is kind of easy, but eventually you run out of people, or you run out of the weapons, and what kills you is no staff buff because he does his arcane disorient or whatever. That does damage to everybody, and then you're just the whole raid is disoriented for 10 seconds each time he does that. And the tank not getting the cosmic infuser buff, so then he's taking 50% more damage from the fireballs. So it goes downhill pretty fast once that happens. But the fight is long enough where at the very end you might get a second hero. But that is everything. So if anyone does have any questions though, and you just didn't feel like bringing it up now for this or SSC, you can ask me like later if you want to. If you didn't want to bring it up, well, like, we're all in giant channels, so totally down to answer any questions through DMs or like Discord or whatever. But I do appreciate everyone for showing up. I know you guys had like some of you guys have a raid that you go to on Sundays, but I do feel like it was important to have as many people here as possible. And hope that helps us out. Usually, I think we've been pretty good even without our PTR practice about going through and hitting raid content pretty reliably with just walkthroughs.
Yee.
Just want to be able to spam heal nonstop.
I mean, a lot of healing.
That's what I
Only
want.
a couple bosses you can't.
Yeah. But yeah, certainly will be a giant step up from the 25 main content we've had to this point.